Good evening, and now for something completely different. Well, not really, but something different from what you've been hearing maybe elsewhere on the internet for the last several weeks. Tonight, I'm bringing a video to you about advice for traveling in the Caribbean. This particular video is advice about money. So, based on my experiences in Belize, I learned a few things about how to go prepared to the Caribbean with money in order to properly transact. So tip number one, bring lots of small bills. The reason for this is that the Belizean dollar is worth roughly half of what ours is, and the average national income in Belize is about $8,000 a year, which means if you come with a pocket full of $100 bills, you are going to be considered to be very wealthy. The reason why small bills are important is not because of the other things that we're going to talk about, but because most of the people there have no money. So if you want to buy something, even at government sites, they won't be able to make change. They don't typically tend to have enough money on hand to be able to break a $100 bill. So when I went to Belize, I went with $320 in American cash in my pocket, two $100 bills and $120 in smaller bills. I brought the two $100 bills home because no one could cash them. In fact, the first day when we went to the grocery store and she opened the till to get change, I looked inside and thought, oh, gee, I hope she has enough to give us change, because they don't transact anywhere near the scale that we do in terms of the amount of money that flows through there. So if you're buying something that costs 20 Belize dollars and you give them a $20 American, you'll get $20 Belize back. And sometimes that's all they've got. I had fistfuls of change. I had crumpled up dollar bills because they were scraping together enough money to make change. So if you want to buy stuff, small bills. Number two, small bills will help you look less like you are rich. Now, people assumed that we weren't very wealthy because we looked like Mennonites, and at one point I remember a guy saying, well, we know you don't have any money because you're Mennonites. And we pointed at the car we were driving and said, we're not Mennonites, we're Americans. But if you don't have if you have small bills, then they won't assume that you're super wealthy, as long as they don't see a big stack of wad of them in your wallet. So that will mean that you're less likely to be bilked on the price, and that you're less likely to be robbed, because there's a lot of crime, a lot of probably petty crime there, like pickpocketing and such. So if you only have fives and tens, it won't look anywhere near as much like you're some sort of luxuriating tourist, especially in the port cities where the crime is probably the most. The third thing about that having small bills is that it will allow you to control where you go. If you have small enough bills, you can do transactions anywhere. And I recommend that you do them in the non-standard places, because you're less likely to run into people who are looking to bilk you if you go away from the touristy areas. Now, if you go away from the touristy areas, their till will be very small, and they won't have a lot of money there. If someone approaches you in Belize and seems friendly and helpful, they have an ulterior motive. Everybody we met that was that way, who bandied up to us and sidled up and smiled, did so with an ulterior motive. And if you have small bills and you stay out of the tourist areas, then you'll be able to transact with the natives, with the indigenous people in their native habitat, and stop at the roadside stand and buy some fruit. But you're going to need to have small amounts of money, and probably not American money, because they may not know what the exchange rate and they may not be able to get rid of the American money. We actually, at one point in Corozal town, had a guy actually offer to trade us his American money for Belizean money to get rid of it, because it's exceptionally difficult for them to get rid of on a regular basis, because it's not a common thing. It has value, but they can't get rid of it anywhere. In fact, one grocery store we went to in Belmopan, they wouldn't take two of my friend's $20 bills because they had rips in them. And I wasn't sure what the problem was, but she explained that the banks won't take them if they're damaged, which is pretty funny because their money looks like crap. But the banks, I guess, were not equipped to detect fraud or counterfeits. And so damaged bills were a problem. But if you have small bills, or if you take their money out and you go into the countryside, you're not going to get bilked, but you're also going to have to run the risk of them not having any change for you. And it isn't because they are intending to rip you off and charge you more. It's because they don't really see a lot of tourists, and they're usually transacting with people on a different system. A lot of the people in Belize still, I think, do a form of barter where they will trade things. The guy who ran the ferry, who told us that the ferry would be free because we were Mennonites, right? Because we have a car. My buddy offered him beer in exchange for it, which he took gleefully, and then he explained as we were going across the river that that's usually what the Mennonites do, because it's well understood they have no money, but they do have food. And so they would trade in the crops that they have for the things that they need. And that's very, very common out there because as long as they feel like they're getting a good deal, they'll trade for anything. I mean, he was telling us about how he got 50 pounds of beans, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not excited about beans that much, but maybe in the current Kung Flu circumstance, you'd like to have 50 pounds of beans. But they viewed that as valuable, and I guess it's not tempting to steal, so maybe it's more valuable than cash. But they're used to dealing a different way in terms of trading for things instead of trading currency for things. So they barter directly rather than using a medium of exchange. So if you want to see Belize, if you want to see the Mayans, the indigenous people, you need to get out of the cities and go to the small towns. I recommend Altanha. I'll talk about Altanha extensively in another video, even though it's the most developed and touristy of the Mayan archaeological sites in Belize. I recommend that you go there because of its unique layout, architecture, and the degree to which they have tried to restore it. It doesn't compare at all to Tikal in Guatemala or Chichen Itza in the Yucatan part of Mexico, but it is one of the most redeveloped ones in Belize. I don't believe in that, but it's interesting to see what they believe it would look like fully mocked up, and then they've built using rocks staircases up so you don't actually walk on the edifice itself, which is interesting. But when you go there, you're going to get accosted by people. They're going to, hey, friend, just like panhandlers at the supermarket here in the States. So like I said, no one is going to talk to you because they're your friend, and they're going to expect a tip for it. So if that's not your thing, one of the things that my friend and I did, also, we think this is what made them think we're Mennonites, is we both speak German, so we'd speak German to each other. They recognize that, but don't speak it. They know they've heard it, and they realize, oh, maybe we've made a mistake. We thought they were American tourists. Maybe they're actually Mennonites, and they'll change their tune. But if you can talk in a foreign language in front of them, something that isn't Creole or Spanish, they will probably just walk away because they're not prepared for that. They're looking for an easy mark. Taxi drivers, water taxi, tour guides. Oh, man, tour guides. Tours are not necessary at any of the actual city sites. If you go to any of the caves, caverns, burial mounds, things that there are places that need a guide. Those are also supremely expensive because you've got to rent a guide. And they're like $60 a person for the guided tour. And some of them aren't very long. There's a spelunking one, a rafting one, a kayaking one. And none of them are very long in terms of distance. They're probably 3 to 4 hours where he yammers on, and having heard some of the guides, they don't know anything. So hiring them, it's their job, but it's totally, totally not worth the money that they charge. So get inside the building, go to the government employee. The government employee doesn't care. He's just going to take your entrance fee and give you a little ticket, and I got a whole stack of them over there. That shows you've paid to get in, and then just avoid anyone else. You don't need to talk to anyone else at the site unless they're a government employee in a uniform with the BTB logo on it, Belize Tourism Board. The rest of the people there are there hawking services at an exorbitantly inflated rate. So anyway, some ways to save money. One other tip, in case you haven't seen my other videos about saving money. So if you go down to the Caribbean, they will sell all sorts of outfitter day trips. And the outfitter day trips put you together in a group, in a van, and they usually start at 9 o'clock, they're from 9 to 5. So you start at 9, have breakfast, you drive somewhere, you do something all together, and then you come back. And I guess for what you get, they're a decent fair deal because it includes the entrance fee, the transportation, and meal, breakfast and lunch for the day. Except that that's all you do all day. So the outfitters sell a single activity per day. And some of them, and they're about $100 a day. Now, we rented a car, and it ran us with gas about $1,000 for the week, out the door with full coverage insurance and everything on it, and gas. Gas over there is exorbitant, but that's another story. But it gave us the freedom to leave when we wanted, and we were out the door before 7 o'clock every day, and we weren't back at our hotel until I think 8 o'clock's the earliest we got back, but once we got back after 11. So we basically pulled in, unloaded, went to our rooms, got stuff ready for the morning, and went to bed. We had to shower because we were dirty. But that was it. It gave us freedom, and I saw 11 sites and 11 Mayan ruin sites in 7 days, and we saw other things, cities, markets, talked to the people, went shopping on the economy, spent time in our hotel room, went for walks, went to the shore, did a little, went to some other places, and we were able to do all of that instead. And if we had done 6 day trips, just for the day trips alone, to see 6 things, would have cost us $1,200. So we were able to see probably 3 times as much and see the countryside and drive through it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, which you would not have seen, assuming that you are willing to do that and that you can drive for that long and put up with their roads. But there are ways to save money there, some tips about money there. If you do bring large money, I have no idea where you change it. I guess you have to go to the bank, and the banks are pretty shady looking. I don't know where else you change your money. And their money looks fake. The only banknote of any significance is the $2 note. The $2 note on the obverse has the jade skull, one of the famous artifacts that was found in one of the Belizean temples. Not the crystal skull, which was found in one of their temples, but that's not on the note. Not on the reverse. It has temples from 3 of the sites, one of which I didn't get to, another story, but 2 of them I did see. And so for a piece of memorabilia that basically only costs you $1 US, it's actually worth getting. But they're super rare there, just like they are here. So, food for thought as you prepare for a trip to the Caribbean. Assuming one day that you can. Until then, plan your life, plan that it's going to get better, plan that it will reopen up, plan that there will be better days ahead, because one day the world will come to an end, but it is not this day. And I don't believe that this is the end harbinger of the times. I think that things will change, but once again, we will be free to move about the country and about the world. Maybe not as free, maybe not as easily, maybe not as cheaply, and maybe not as universally, but we are blessed in ways that previous generations cannot possibly imagine. So a matter of perspective goes a long way. Anyway, have a good day. Stay healthy, stay happy, Godspeed, and good night.